JD Vance, of course, the Vice President. Have a listen. He's been very, very strong on this whole issue of free speech, in particular, free speech outside America, such as here. We want here on JD's radar. Here he is talking the other...
Yes, ma'am.
In his remarks at the Munich Security Conference, Vice President Vance condemned free speech violations in the UK, particularly. Could you respond? What is your message?
I have an idea. We have the man right here. Come on. Let's go, JD. We're putting you on stage.
Great. Look, I said what I said, which is that we do have, of course, a special relationship with our friends in the UK and also with some of our European allies, but we also know that there have been infringements on free speech that actually affect not just the British. Of course, what the British do in their own country is up to them, but also affect American technology companies and, by extension, American citizens. So,
Britain has just walked straight into one of the most humiliating diplomatic episodes in modern memory. The United States, our closest ally, released an official government report branding the UK as authoritarian. Not unstable, not concerning, but authoritarian. And the timing couldn't have been worse. The statement dropped while America's incoming Vice President, JD Vance, was staying under the roof of the Foreign Secretary himself. Imagine hosting your closest partner for dinner, only for them to rise from the table and publicly criticize you before the plates are cleared. British politics seems to attract moments like this. If you value bold, unfiltered analysis, make sure to like the video and subscribe to Dark Britain, because nearly 98% of viewers tune in without following, and it costs nothing to stay informed. Washington didn't soften the blow either. The criticism was placed squarely inside a formal human rights report, an official document accessible to governments, journalists, and watchdog groups worldwide. This wasn't quiet diplomacy behind closed doors. It was a global broadcast, putting Britain's reputation under a harsh international spotlight for everyone to examine.
Collective West, the transatlantic relationship, our NATO allies, certainly the United States under the Biden administration, got a little too comfortable with censoring rather than engaging with a diverse array of opinions. So that's been my view. Obviously, I've raised some criticism and concerns about our friends on this side of the Atlantic. But the thing that I'd say to the people of England or to anybody else, to David, is many of the things that I worry most about were happening in the United States from 2020 to 2024. I just don't want other countries to follow us down what I think was a very dark path.
This was no careless remark tossed into the wind. It was a calculated strike at the heart of Britain's democratic standing. While Vance was enjoying the calm of the English countryside, his administration was issuing a stark warning that the UK's institutions are veering into dangerous territory. So what pushed Washington to confront its closest ally so openly? The report makes it clear: free speech. American officials accused Starmer's government of tightening restrictions on expression at unprecedented speed, and they pointed first to the heavy-handed response to the Southport unrest. Rather than fostering open debate, Starmer's team pressed social media platforms, including major U.S. companies, to remove posts officials labeled as misinformation. In Washington's view, that move crossed a critical line, echoing the kind of state-driven censorship Britain has long criticized elsewhere. The language used was severe, describing the situation as deeply troubling, an unmistakable signal that even close allies now see this not as a simple misstep, but as a pattern that risks undermining the very democratic principles Britain claims to defend.
The administration is so forthright in talking about these issues, no matter who's in the room. But the question begs, Brad, is he right?
I think he's absolutely right about the United Kingdom and their sad decline in freedom of speech and freedom of press. I mean, you have thousands of people who've been arrested over the years because of things they posted on social media. That is not a free country. That is a kind of modern dystopia, an authoritarian state where the government can roll up with the authorities to come get you because they don't like what you have to say. It is sad to see that happen to one of our greatest allies, a beautiful nation with a long history and legacy as a beacon of freedom in the West. And I also appreciate JD Vance calling them out for it. But honestly, it will have to come from within. Their own citizens will have to stop standing for it, stop standing for the censorship, stop standing for the overreach, for the absurd policing. You see video after video where the police roll up on somebody for a crude joke that they posted online, or for asking someone, why don't you speak English, or any other sort of thing that's just fundamentally not a police.
Washington's criticism didn't end with speech controls. The report also highlighted new public space regulations that allow police to penalize even silent prayer within designated zones. The notion that someone could face fines or arrest for standing quietly was troubling enough for U.S. officials to warn that Britain may be edging toward regulating personal belief itself. Then there's the Online Safety Act, requiring adults to verify their age to access certain websites, and raising concerns about potential government reach into encrypted communications. In effect, critics argue that online anonymity weakens, and private conversations could become more exposed to state oversight. It's a framework some say feels less like a confident democracy, and more like a cautionary tale. And if free expression set off alarm bells in Washington, the next issue sparked even sharper condemnation: Britain's struggle to address rising anti-Semitism. Since late 2023, Jewish communities have reported levels of hostility not seen in decades, adding another layer of urgency to an already tense transatlantic debate. The report didn't deal in vague numbers, it laid out chilling incidents: staff at a kosher shop in London forced to defend themselves from a knife-wielding attacker, a university chaplain in Yorkshire relocating his family after receiving death threats linked to his past service in the Israeli Defense Forces. These weren't abstract headlines, they were real people living under real fear. For the United States, grappling with its own challenges around hate crimes, to formally call out Britain in an official document marked a serious escalation, framing the issue not merely as domestic unrest, but as a broader human rights and national security concern with international weight. Then came the unexpected turn. While accepting the hospitality of his British hosts, JD Vance delivered what felt like a pointed diplomatic warning, arguing that America made severe mistakes on free expression between 2020 and 2024 and cautioning that Britain now risks accelerating down the same path. It was the political equivalent of a guest calmly telling you you're repeating their most costly missteps, while still seated at your table.
Kingdom, and it will last for a very, very long time. Well, no, I mean, certainly we wouldn't want to reach across US citizens, and we don't, and that's absolutely right. But in relation to free speech in the UK, I'm very proud of our history there.
With criticism mounting from across the Atlantic, you'd expect the Prime Minister to respond with authority and conviction. Instead, Starmer's reply landed with a thud. When pressed on free speech, he didn't project the confidence of someone defending a foundational democratic principle. He came across hesitant, uncertain, as if searching for solid ground in a moment that demanded resolve. At a time when Britain needed clarity, he radiated doubt. Meanwhile, Washington was anything but cautious. The report didn't hide behind diplomatic niceties or carefully crafted ambiguity. It stated outright that the UK is facing serious constraints on freedom of expression and pointed to inconsistency when those in power overstep. In the world of diplomacy, where even sharp criticism is usually softened, language that direct carries weight. The underlying signal was unmistakable. The United States believes Britain is losing its footing on core democratic values, or worse, drifting without urgency to correct course.
Opposed to lost. But we got along with them also. We have a very good relationship with.
The irony couldn't be more striking. The country that shaped parliamentary democracy, sealed the Magna Carta, and influenced constitutions around the globe is now being warned by its closest ally that it's drifting from its own legacy. Britain, once celebrated as a beacon of liberty, is no longer held up as the example. It's being cited as a caution. The sting of that reversal is impossible to ignore. It's as if the architect of democratic norms is suddenly being lectured on how to uphold them. And this isn't a fleeting headline that fades by morning. Washington is framing it as a serious diplomatic rupture, delivering a blunt message: Britain has crossed a threshold, and if the current course continues, it risks not only diminished influence but eroded trust. Even long-standing allies appear less patient than before. For decades, this special relationship was treated as rock solid. Now, the shared principles underpinning it are openly debated. When the United States questions your democratic credibility, the world takes notice, and reputational damage doesn't vanish overnight. The larger picture sharpens the warning. A nation once viewed as the gold standard of democratic governance is now being discussed as an example of how quickly that standard can slip. If Washington is prepared to describe Britain as authoritarian in a formal report, how long before Europe, the Commonwealth, or other partners begin to echo that verdict? The wording may have been measured, but the shockwaves were severe. Britain is no longer being seen as a steady guardian of democratic values, but as a nation edging away from its own foundations. That's the real risk. Once a country earns that label, rebuilding its reputation is painfully slow. Trust doesn't collapse overnight, it thins out quietly. Trade negotiations grow tense. Intelligence cooperation becomes more guarded. Military partnerships turn cautious. Diplomatic warmth cools. Allies start asking whether Britain remains dependable or is becoming uncertain. This kind of decline doesn't arrive with dramatic headlines, it advances in silence, and once it takes hold, it's difficult to reverse. The more troubling reality is that this could be just the opening chapter. If policies continue to broaden state oversight, narrow space for expression, and apply certain laws unevenly, critical reports won't fade, they'll expand. Today it's Washington sounding the alarm. Tomorrow it could be Brussels, Ottawa, Canberra, or Tokyo adding their voices to the chorus. When the chorus of concern grows loud enough, it stops being background noise and becomes impossible to ignore. So the question confronting citizens is stark. Is this merely turbulence in Britain's democratic journey, or are we witnessing a deeper unraveling in real time? For now, debate and protest remain protected, but history warns that rights taken for granted can erode if vigilance fades. Freedoms surrendered are rarely restored without resistance, and when governments grow accustomed to narrowing dissent, the first step is seldom the last. A nation once celebrated as democracy's standard-bearer now finds itself under scrutiny, not applause. America's tone has shifted from praise to caution, and that pivot alone should command attention. Because if that doesn't spark reflection, what will? At what point does quiet acceptance become silent endorsement? When does a democratic inheritance start slipping away unnoticed? The defining question lingers: has Britain crossed a critical threshold, or is this the alarm bell before lasting damage is done? This is no abstract debate, it's unfolding now. And while open discussion still stands, the responsibility to use that freedom has never been greater. The real issue isn't just whether Britain's democratic image is bruised, it's whether there's still time and resolve to restore it.